Hey, it's Pallavi Kashyap. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome, my lovely listeners. Today, I have a very special friend who's joining me all the way from Switzerland. Her name is Jessica Fabrizi. Let me give you a brief bio before I get her onto my show. So, Jessica is a personal PR strategist, and she's the founder of JFab Personal PR. She helps build personal brands and helps them growth hack their visibility and credibility to skyrocket their income and impact. She has around 15 years work experience as a PR executive from world-renowned brands like Fiat, Peugeot, and Singapore Airlines. Jessica's signature approach to personal branding and thought leadership is all about omnipresence. She leverages her own channels, third-party channels, and strategic relationships to help her clients achieve maximum exposure and business growth. Jessica's clients include multiple TEDx speakers, book authors, and regular TV guests, also contributing writers from prestigious publications. When not running the personal PR mastermind and working with private clients, Jessica can be found sharing her magic on the personal PR show. She often appears on podcasts as a guest and at times at summits as a speaker. So with that, thank you so much, Jessica, and welcome to my Energized Lifestyle podcast. So happy to have you finally.
Finally, exactly. Thank you so much, Pallavi, for inviting me for this wonderful opportunity. And hello to your lovely audience. Guys, you have great taste because you're following Pallavi. Well done.
Oh, thank you so much. And Jessica, for all my guests, I do have my podcast is especially focused on entrepreneurship, health, wellness, and spirituality. So I have various mixes of speakers and guests who come into my show. For you, I think since you are a PR specialist, PR expert, I will just limit my questions so that, my audience also gets the maximum benefit from your expertise. So I was just going through, just to start off with my first questions, I was going through your, bio and everything you have on the internet. And I came across you as a very friendly, networking person. And also what I captured was that you know 7 languages. And knowing so many different languages actually gives you, an edge over others. So in your experience, in your journey, how has knowing so many languages helped you?
Yeah, this is such a good question. And definitely speaking a lot of languages has helped me in my life all along, in different phases of my life. I think when you are able to speak somebody's language, then you can relate better to them. You can really, let's say, connect more deeply with them, and especially if it's their native language and it's your native language as well, right? So I only have one native language. So when I connect with Italians, because Italian is my mother tongue, I come from Italy originally, then of course, all of the, let's say, the nuances and the idioms and so on, they are, let's say, they are the common denominator in both speakers and both people involved in the conversation. So this is really where you can express yourself much, much better. And you can, add this element of humor as well. But unfortunately, I only have one native language. I do speak a few languages, and some of them I speak pretty well, like, for example, German. And if I'm connected to somebody whose native language is German or English for that matter, or French or Spanish, then even if it's not my native language, but it's theirs, still for me, it's really important to see them in their native language, because this is how they express themselves better. And then I see the real them, so to say, and then I know how to connect to them, in a certain way, to connect to them deeply as well. Because at the end of the day, in conversations, Pallavi, we don't really remember what was discussed, the facts that were, exchanged. We actually remember how we felt during that conversation. People will remember how you made them feel. So if they felt comfortable with you because they were able to speak their own native language and they were able, to express themselves fully, then that will certainly give them a good feeling, and they will associate you with that good feeling.
So it's basically building some connection which is beyond and which is very much maybe particular to that person, that individual we are addressing. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a PR question. So, even like I have my business, I'm an entrepreneur, but even I think a year and a half back, I never thought PR is needed for me or in my business. I mean, we always have this thing that, okay, if you're a very big organization, you're a big business, is when you need PR. But my eyes opened when I, started listening to you more and, a few other experts in the same field. So tell us, how important is a PR for, let's say, a starting business, an evolving business, need not be a very big business, somebody who started, let's say, 6 months, and so in terms of a new business, how important is PR?
Pallavi, this is such a good question because I hear it all the time. So many people are coming up to me and say, do I really need PR? Because actually I'm just at the beginning, or maybe I've been working for a few years as an entrepreneur, but as you just mentioned, I'm not this big organization. So number one, maybe I don't have the means, to invest in PR. And number two, I don't really see myself being newsworthy because I can't say that I have, thousands of clients, for example, or that I'm producing like huge impact that would be newsworthy for a magazine to talk about you. And this is where I introduce the distinction between personal PR and product PR. So to give you a short answer, I don't recommend to do product PR at the beginning of your business, but I do recommend to do personal PR at the beginning of your business. So basically, product PR is related to your service or to your product, right? So you are not the protagonist of the coverage that you do, or the pitch that you may be doing to the media, or the coverage that the media will give you. You're not the protagonist. The protagonist is actually your product or service. Now, the problem is that when we are starting out in business, it will take some time for us to figure out product market fit. So is what I'm offering actually suitable for the audience, for the industry, for the market? Are they interested? Is it relevant for them? And the other way around as well, right? So are they the right audience, the right market for me? Or should I, pivot to some other market, to some other industry? So this is something that needs to be figured out at the beginning, and it will take some time. It will take some iterations. You'll try once, 3 times, 2 times, 3 times, maybe 4 times. It will take, maybe 6 months. It will take a year. And in that time, I don't think that we should talk about product or service and create all of this visibility and all of these bars and attention around your products and service, because most likely your product and service will need to change. You will need to shift. You will need to tweak it along the way. You will need to pivot, right? What you can do, what I really recommend that you do, though, from the very beginning, is to work on personal PR. And personal PR is, to make it very simple, is a mix of personal branding and thought leadership. So when we talk about personal branding, we talk about, your values, we talk about your story, we talk about maybe your mission. And when we talk about thought leadership, we talk about your breakthrough idea, right? The breakthrough idea, and that you would like to share with the world, and that you would like to create a movement around, right? So all of these things, if you think about it, they just stay, even if you change your product or service, because you're doing different iterations and you're tweaking your products and service. Actually, your values, your story, your mission, your breakthrough idea, like let's say, maybe we'll go more into the breakthrough idea in a few minutes, but it's basically the addition that you make into the body of knowledge of the field where you're operating, right? So this thing, like your innovation, maybe the movement that you would like to create around this breakthrough idea, they will all stay because they are connected to you. This is what I call personal PR, so personal branding and thought leadership. And this is you building your personal equity, your personal PR equity, right? So once you build all of these things, you actually will be able to let's say, help your business as well. Because once you have all of this presence, people know who you are, what you stand for, what your breakthrough idea is, and so on, then it will be much easier for you to then drop a product or service, right? Because you have already created all of this attention around your person and around your ideas. So your product or service will actually be like a very natural translation and application of your thought leadership, let's say, right? So it's really, really conducive to business. And I definitely recommend that people start, working on their personal PR from day one.
Very interesting, because I think when you have established yourself as a brand, then it's very easy also for people to relate to who you are, and there's more credibility and there's more trust, so it adds up. So I wanted to ask, this was my personal question. So PR and marketing, are they both together, or from the same team, or from the, like if you talk about an organization, so they have the marketing team. So is PR a part of marketing team, or they are separate teams?
This is such a good question because, it depends. It depends on the organization. And I've seen different combinations. I've always tried to work in organizations where the PR person, a PR director, let's say, was reporting directly to the CEO. And I've always chose those kind of companies because, to be honest, I never wanted to report to the marketing manager, the CMO, because a lot of times CMOs don't really get the essence of PR. And actually the publicist should be, the head of PR should really be an advisor to the CEO, right? And a lot of times even PR will influence the strategic decisions that a CEO will make, right? Because those decisions will certainly have a direct impact on the stakeholders. And stakeholder management is something that is done by the publicist, certainly not something that is done by the CMO, right? Because at the end of the day, who represents the company? The spokesperson is the publicist, right? So the spokesperson will represent the company with the media, with all of the other stakeholders and so on. They will be held accountable. They will be held, considered responsible alongside with the CEO. So certainly it's not the CMO that should, have, let's say, power over these matters, in my opinion. So my decisions were always to work for companies where I was reporting directly to the general manager or the CEO.
Perfect. Also, when you spoke about media, what are the medias? Initially, olden times, we just had newspapers and magazines and TV. Now we have every new day another new app coming up. So PR is which are the platforms and which are the channels it goes to, or is it restricted to a few channels? So tell us something on the media and the channels part.
Yes. So I'll tell you about maybe my own model for visibility, right? And the channels that are included in this and the way they are structured. So I see three main dimensions. And the first dimension is definitely your own channel. So basically the channels that you own, meaning that you have an account, you have your credentials and you can log into this account, and then you can decide what is published in this Instagram channel, for example, or YouTube channel or whatever, like Facebook account, right? So you will have the full control over what is published there because it's yours. And of course, that can be a website as well. It can be your newsletter, like many channels. Whenever you have a login, login data or credentials to get somewhere, this is your own channels. This is very, very important, but it's not enough. We need to be present. If we really want to have visibility and credibility, we need to be present on third-party channels as well. So basically, third-party channels are channels that are not ours. And there are so many there as well. They can be somebody else's social media, right? So you can go live with somebody on their Instagram, and for you, it will be a third-party channel. This is not your channel. This is not your own, your own channel. And then when it comes to third-party channels, I see a pyramid. I call it the publicity pyramid. So let's say at the foundation, we have maybe, Instagram or let's say social media channels of other people, maybe where we are interviewed. It could be, we go live with them on Facebook or whatever. We can be interviewed on their podcast. Then maybe we can start writing for publications. Maybe for high profile publications even. So we are, let's say, a blogger for a certain publication, right? We write, we're a contributing writer, and we're going up and up on the publicity ladder. Then maybe we're even featured on a publication, right? So maybe an article is written about us in a newspaper or maybe in a magazine. So we're going up and up and up. And then we get to the peak of the publicity pyramid, which is TV. TV is very difficult to get on. But once you are on TV, you are really perceived as the expert, right? The authority in that field. And the credibility, to be honest, is instant. So the higher we go on the publicity pyramid, the more instant the credibility will be. So I would like to really, highlight the distinction between owned channels and third-party channels, in the sense that owned channels, we definitely need them, but we also need third-party channels because third-party channels are what gives us social proof, and that's credibility. So basically, these people that own these channels that for us are third party, they actually put their reputation on the line the moment they feature us on their channels, right? Because in order for them to really believe that they should bring us on their channels, they need to think that we can really make an addition, we can really add value to their audience or to their readership, right? If they don't think that we have something to offer, they will certainly not invite us. So the moment that they invite us, then it's already a huge compliment and a huge endorsement that they're doing for us. And this is social proof, and this is what builds credibility. So the last thing that I will say when it comes to my model of visibility is something that not even publicists think about. By the way, I'll go back a second. The first dimension, own channels, this is what marketers are all about. So when they say, oh yeah, be omnipresent, be very visible and so on, they mean be basically on also all social media. And while that is, great and conducive to visibility, this is not enough, right? We have to add public relations, which is dimension number 2, which is third party. Public relations is all about being featured on third parties. So it's not about you talking about yourself on your social media. It's about having other people talk about you, and of course, talk about you in great terms. So these are, I would say, the 2 first dimensions, but there's a third one that not even publicists think about. And this is me putting on my hat as a global super connector. So on one side, I'm a publicist. On the other side, I'm a global super connector. So networking, relationships and all that stuff. So the third dimension is about us knowing the right people, let's say the key players in a certain field. So if our goal is to establish ourselves as an authority in that particular field, then we have to know who the key players are in that field. We have to kind of draw a map of who's who in that field. I have 25 categories in order to find out who's who in that field, and then build relationships with them, right? So if we want them to consider us to be a thought leader and innovate in that particular field, they need to know us personally, and they need to know us for the ideas that we have, the breakthrough idea that we have and that we represent and that we want to spread into the world, right? So if you see somebody, and I conclude with this, Pallavi, if you see somebody, let's say on social media, and you think they're great, then you see them in a magazine and you think that they're great as well, and they have the social proof of the third party channel as well. This is great. But if you, on top of that, know the person personally, right, and you have a relationship, then the influence that that person will have on you, and let's say the opinion that you will have of that person will be much, much stronger. And also the impact that they will have will be much, much stronger. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do with thought leadership is actually, in personal PR, is to have an impact, right? So we really want to cover all of these 3 dimensions. And this is why I developed this, this model for visibility.
Networking is very important in at least especially this profile. So, and personally, I am a person who really is not very good in networking. So, so you have been like really awesome in this field. So is this natural?
I think, do you know what? I think certainly public relations has a lot to do with networking, but I think I got into public relations because I already loved networking, not the other way around. It's not that I had to learn networking for public relations, right? So I think I was already networking when I was a child, to be honest, Pallavi, because when I was already in primary school, I would spend every single afternoon writing loads of letters to people all over the world. Yeah. And my highlight of the day was coming back from school, checking my mail and see how many letters I got that day. I was 100% sure that I would get at least 3 letters. Sometimes I would even get 10. Oh my God, from all over the world. And it was amazing. And I would spend really my afternoons replying to all of these people. And that was what was possible in the 80s, right? Because that was in the 80s. Beginning of the 90s. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have anything else. And I already loved it back then. And then of course, as soon as I had the opportunity, I started traveling. When I was a teenager already, I lived abroad in a few countries, especially in the summer, and then for university as well. And this is where I really opened myself to the world, let's say, not only in writing, but like personally as well. And then it continued. Then of course the internet came and Zoom came, and it was amazing. Now I have to say that every single day I kind of do around the world trip, starting in the morning with Asia and Australia, and then continuing with, Europe and Africa, and then, ending my days with the Americas. So I think that has always been a part of my life.
Yeah, and so I just out of curiosity, when you mentioned letters, I wanted to know what did you write and what you used to write to those people and how they responded.
Yes, I think that, you know, because we were coming from different parts of the world, they were asking me about Italy and especially about Lake Como.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I think probably I was telling them, you know, what Lake Como was about, that we had the mountains and the lake, and, you know, that, of course, you could do multiple activities in nature, but that the city, Milan, was not too far away because it was just, you know, a 1 hour ride away by train. And probably I was writing about myself as well, what I was doing, and maybe what I was sort of studying at school, what I was experiencing in my family, to me being a track and field athlete from a very young age, you know, and also probably visiting my relatives in Germany, in Rome, which is very far away from where I grew up because I come from the border, you know, the Italian part, but the border to Switzerland. And yeah, so I think that these were the topics more or less that I would discuss. But then certainly I was asking loads of questions as well because I wanted to know about them. I wanted to know. So what I remember this pen pal that I had from Sweden, and I would always ask him about the weather. So what are the temperatures like in the winter, in the summer, in the spring, and so on. I wanted to know it all because I definitely wanted to go to Scandinavia, and I was super fascinated by that region. Yes.
Interesting. And what also I wanted to ask was about you are right now on your own. You had a very amazing corporate, career where you had worked with luxury brands. So how is it now? You know, working on your own. What have been the changes for anybody who's listening, and if they are there, you know, somewhere struggling and wanting to move on this side? So what are the your tips, or what are those three things you would tell them when they're
Yeah.
making a shift? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a good question because it is not easy. It's definitely not an easy choice, definitely. So I've been thinking about it for a while, and then I just went for it. But something that I learned is that you have to earn your right to leave. And by that, I mean that I see so many people that just decide to leave, maybe because they're not satisfied with their current corporate job, or because they're very excited about what is next for them. They just leave without preparing too much. And I think that is very dangerous. And it's certainly not conducive to us living our mission. So if we're really serious about our mission, we want to really be able to, you know, start with our mission, start with a business in the best of ways so that it will be sustainable. So in order for our business to be sustainable, we also have to have some preparation behind it. So my preparation in my case was definitely, I would say, my network, which is something that we have already talked about, and certainly also my personal brand. So being known, for example, as a global super connector all over the world for many years, like for 10 years, I had been building my brand and I had been building this network. This is definitely something that was super useful, especially at the beginning of my business when I started last year. This helps so much because, of course, I already had a lot of attention around me, and I was just able to shift it from me, you know, working at Singapore Airlines to actually be me working as a self-employed person, having her own business. So I would say, don't take the decision immediately. I mean, or maybe you can make the decision, but you don't put it into practice immediately. Maybe you give yourself a few months in order to prepare yourself. Is it finance? Your finances that you have to get in order? Is it, something related to your personal life, maybe? Is it something related to your network? Maybe you should network a little bit more. I recommend that everybody networks all the time. You shouldn't only network when you need it, actually, because there's a saying that says, actually a book title that says, dig your well before you're thirsty. If you're thirsty, this is where you start digging your well, which is basically network. Then you're gonna actually die of thirst, to be honest, because it takes some time to dig your well, right? So prepare in terms of network, prepare in terms of personal brand as well. Build your personal brand, create a little bit of buzz around you. This is what I would recommend, definitely.
And while you were saying this, I think also another component is the mindset, how you tame your mindset, how you build your mindset to go through something like this, because sometimes what you are preparing for may not work out the way you planned. So
Yes.
in those times, the mindset, what kind of a mindset you have is going to take you through on either side. Either you jump to this fence or you move back to where you started from. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
on mindset. Would you like to add anything on mindset?
Yeah, thank you. Well, when it comes to mindset, I think that we need to talk about identity as well, right? So there needs, when you're going from corporate to entrepreneur, there's certainly a shift in identity that you have to do. And in the beginning, especially in the early stages of entrepreneurship, sometimes you will feel as an entrepreneur, right? You will feel that you have this identity. And sometimes you will feel like still, let's say, an employee. And sometimes you will feel like something in between, which means nothing. Maybe you don't feel like neither as an entrepreneur nor as an employee. And you feel like in a limbo. And I think that what we need to do in the early stages is to constantly work on our mindset. So what I do in the morning before I do anything else, I actually prime myself mentally, and I try to really step into the identity of the entrepreneur. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not easy. And that means, of course, when an entrepreneur, it means having, a lot of freedom, a lot of creative freedom as well, which is great. But it also means a lot of responsibility, and not only responsibility to yourself, it means responsibility to your team as well. I decided to have a team even before I had clients, to be honest. Like, already hired a team before the clients came. And of course, I had to step into the role, not only of the self-employed person that is just responsible for herself, but I even had to step into the role of the employer, right? Who, whatever happens to the business, will pay a salary to the employees at the end of the month, right? Yeah. So that is something that certainly needs a lot of work. And this is something that I still now do daily. Absolutely. Yes. It's something that I recommend, that I would add when it comes to, to mindset.
You are now a mentor to many people, many of your clients. So, but who is your mentor?
Oh my God, I have mentors, Pallavi. I have
so many.
Yeah, I have so many, because I love working with mentors one-on-one or in masterminds. Okay. And I'm part of so many masterminds, and there are new masterminds that I would like to take part in this year. So I'm still, even if masterminds, the masterminds that are over, I'm still in touch with my mentors, and I have some business mentors, I have public relations mentors. I certainly work with a lot of coaches also when it comes to mindset, high performance, when it comes to also, let's say, a more personal dimension to us as well. For example, nervous system. This is something that I discovered last year. Nervous system work, emotional regulation as well, because, and this goes back to what we just said about entrepreneurship. I mean, it's about the mindset, but it's about also being able to regulate your emotions, and your emotions are actually in the body. So you have to work on the body as well, right? So I have so many different mentors. I work with energy healers as well. So I really try to cover my professional and my personal life from so many different fronts. And this is what I like, because I've always been an eclectic person. So I like to work with a host of different people and different mentors.
Interesting. So I have this one question for all my guests about, and it's been so interesting because I've been hearing different answers. So what does success mean to you? So, and every guest has given me a different answer. So, so it's very interesting for me to, like, out of curiosity, to know what it is exactly from everybody else's perspective. So what is success as per you?
Okay, success to me personally means, I think, two things in two different dimensions. So when it comes to my own success, like, let's say, more of an inner dimension, my inner dimension, I would say that it's all about self-actualization. So have I realized my potential? So that is very, very important to me. On the other side, in the outer dimension, the external dimension, I would say that success to me looks like contribution. So am I helping people? Am I making a difference in other people's life through the gifts that I have? And to be honest, I'm very, let's say, I care a lot about people, but I care also about animals. So yes. So am I doing something that is actually maybe just, a tiny drop in the ocean, but still, have I been able to move something in some animals' lives? So I'm very passionate, for example, about, fighting against animal farming, especially intensive farming. And I'm an advocate for that. And whenever I can, I donate to organizations that are actually fighting against animal farming, intensive farming, especially on a legal in a legal dimension, on a legal level, right? So they're the ones who will try to lobby, for animal rights and so on. These are the people that I am supporting. I used to support a lot of shelters as well, and whenever I have the opportunity, I still support them. But I think that because this problem is so systemic, I think that we have to go to the root cause, and we have to go and talk to the decision makers. So this is where lobbying, which has a lot to do with public relations, by the way, lobbying is very, very important, right? So that's why I decided to support especially those organizations. My dream would be to, create a business like making millions and millions every single year, so that I can, donate most of that money to these organizations. Yes.
Yeah. And okay, so the more you give, the more you get in return. That's also a spiritual law, actually.
Mama,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I also asked this question about, the challenges that we face, especially the biggest challenge that you have ever had in your life, and how did you overcome that? And that is for people listening to us, how if they face a situation similar to that, so where they can draw that courage and that inspiration from. So tell us about any challenge that you have had, and a very major challenge, and how did you get out of it?
Oh my God. I have to say, in my life, I've had a lot of luck. I've been very lucky, but but I also had moments of real bad luck when bad things were happening, and were happening all at the same time. And that has happened to me at least 3 times, in which basically, like, I had health problems, professional problems, and romantic relationship problems at the same time.
Okay, nothing is left out.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, that was really, really heavy. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to survive this every single time, I thought. And then I, came out of that situation thriving even more than in the beginning. So I know now, should it happen another time, of course, I'm going to be quite desperate, to be honest, because it's not nice, it's not fun. But I know that there's, I have the means, I have the strength in order to make it to the other side, definitely. So I think that one of the worst things that happened to me was related to my health. It was about 10, 12 years ago. And I developed, for certain reasons, different reasons, I developed a lot of food intolerances. So basically for a year, I was only able to eat rice because I wasn't tolerating anything else, only rice from the morning till the evening. And that was not easy at all. And, if I look back now, I'm like, well, 1 year only on rice sucks, but it's not too bad. It's only 1 year. The problem was that back then I didn't know that after 1 year I would be able to eat other things again. I didn't know. So I thought, I was like 29 probably. I thought that I would have to be on rice for the rest of my life until I'm hopefully 80 years old, 90 years old. So that was super difficult, because also it created a real problem for me when it comes to also my social life. Right. So that was one of the let's say most difficult things I had to go through, but then there are certainly others. And what I would say in general to people that are going through a difficult situation is to certainly work on your mindset, definitely, but at the same time really surround yourself with a support network, I think, because we can certainly work on our mindset, and there are many, many ways to do so. And I've done it many times, and I know that it works, right? Especially when it comes to personal development, to reframing and so on. Definitely that helped me. Without reframing, I don't know if I would have survived. But at the same time, we can't always be 100% strong, especially us women. We are cyclical beings. So sometimes in certain weeks of the month, we feel very strong, empowered, but in other weeks, we're not as strong. So I would say what you need, especially in the moments of like the weakest moments, is a support network where you can really go and say, okay, even with the best of work, and when it comes to personal development, reframing and so on, I can't reframe this for myself anymore. I'm really, in this deep hole. Can you please support me? And of course, in order to be able to have these relationships where we can go and receive support in our darkest moments, of course, we have to build a relationship, which means that it's a lot about giving as well. That's why it's so important to constantly work on your relationships. We go back to the saying, dig your well before you're thirsty, right? So this, building all of these relationships and giving and so on should be our lifestyle. And then when something bad happens to us, then we will have somebody that we can go to, and we don't need to worry because we're asking something, because we know that in the past we've given so much value to this person, right? So I would say the combination of mindset and a support system is really what can keep you going in the darkest of moments.
Connecting from this support system that you're talking about, and also about communities, you believe so much in community and community building. And I've seen that personally myself in your personal PR, the Facebook group that you run. You are so committed to building that community and, doing so much work around that. So many a times, like, my understanding was, if you, profit, and when you build a group, it's just to make profits out of the group. And it's people stress very less on giving. You first give and then you can take. So whatever you have been doing in the personal PR show, the personal PR group in the Facebook, as well as when you interviewed recently your friend Mind from Mind Valley, it was an eye-opening thing for me. So tell us something about, like, what is the need to build a community, and how can we give to our community, and at what time should we expect something in return? As business owners, all of us do have our interest in those groups, but at what point should we expect something in return?
Yes. Oh my God, it's such a good question, because a lot of people, I think, get it wrong. So I think, and this is what the head of community, global head of community of Mind Valley, my friend Annie, was telling us on the personal PR show that you attended as well a couple of weeks ago. She was saying that your audience is not your community. So many people, and this is what I've been saying as well for so many months to people, and I felt so validated when Annie said it as well, to be honest. So basically, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I have a following on Instagram and I've built my community on Instagram. I have a community on Instagram. And I'm like, this is not a community. This is an audience. This is a following. So basically, in order to have a community, it's not about the people that are following you, because if you see, when people are following you, how can they express themselves? I mean, you are constantly talking to them in whatever format, Instagram stories, lives, whatever, reels, you're talking to them, but they're not really talking to you. Okay, they can comment your posts. They can comment on your posts as well. There's better than nothing, but they can't really express themselves. In a community, everybody's in the same, it's more or less on the same level. So if you express yourself, you're able to post, then other members should be able to post as well. That's why I love Facebook groups. And that's why I put so much intention and effort and energy into my Facebook group, because this is where, of course, I create a lot of content, but anybody can post. Anybody could go live, anybody could do anything, my Facebook group, right? Of course, if they do something that is inappropriate, of course, we're still going to keep an eye on it. Definitely. Sometimes it happens, like weird comments and salesy comments that are really related to, like, really sounds like a scam. Certainly, you want to curate your community, moderate it, keep an eye on it, so everything runs smoothly. But other than that, we're very open as to what people want to publish, want to post. In our community, because we really want to give them the opportunity to express themselves and also to interact with other members. It's not just a platform where everybody posts at each other, like they shout, they talk at each other, and that's it. No, it's also about interaction. It's also about community collaboration. It's about building friendships and partnerships, and that certainly can be conducive to business as well. So as Annie, the global head of events community, of Mind Valley, was saying, it's like inviting people to, to your living room for a party, right? What will they do? Of course, they will all express themselves, they will interact with one another, they will have fun and so on. This is what we should imagine a community as. It's a Facebook group, okay, it's a virtual space, but it's like a living room where people are coming together to actually interact and have fun and create something of value. Definitely. So in terms of monetization, I would say, and I quote Annie regarding this, is that she said, I think you can't expect to monetize or to try, you shouldn't try to monetize anything before, didn't she say 9 to 12 months, I think, because it takes 9 to 12 months to really build a community where the trust has been built. And the trust is built in that you talk to them, but the trust is built in that they start communicating with one another and collaborating with one another. And that, of course, takes time. You can accelerate this process in that you moderate the community, in that you really try to create opportunities as well in order for them to interact, in order for them to express itself. I have at least one challenge per month that I launch, that I throw, so then people, can start expressing themselves and communicating with one another. But yeah, even if you accelerate it, still it's going to take a few months. I would say at least 6 months, right? If you do your work well. And then you can start maybe thinking about monetizing. Okay, do I want to create a membership out of this? A community inside of a community, and this community of insiders is going to be a paid service. Is there any service that I would like to offer in terms of one-to-one, or maybe a mastermind, maybe a course? So I think that, yeah, this would be the timeline.
And yeah, interesting. And I'm going to just incorporate all of these points. And I've actually taken them so seriously after the last talk and this talk, how to build my community and work in my community. So very interesting. And I also wanted to ask, did you mention something in thought leadership that you wanted to continue?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, maybe I can just, give some info as to what I think that thought leadership is.
Okay.
So very briefly, I think that thought leadership is defined by two factors. Number one is innovation, and number two is visibility. So innovation, why? Because there are so many experts today in the world. Everybody's starting their own business around their expertise, by the way. So we're all experts these days. And I think that, if we want to really get visibility and be newsworthy, then we have to elevate our brand from expert to thought leader. The difference between an expert and a thought leader is that the expert is somebody who's very knowledgeable about a certain topic, about a certain field, right? The thought leader is certainly an expert, but it's something more. It's basically the person that knows, the field so well, is so knowledgeable about the field, is so cutting edge, that they are able to innovate, to add something to the body of knowledge of that particular field, right? So if we have this innovation, we're kind of leading already thought leadership, right? We're kind of leading the discourse, the conversation that is going on in that particular field. Another element of leadership is certainly visibility, because if we have this innovation, but nobody knows. We're the only one that who knows about this innovation because we're not sharing it with the world. Then there's no really real leadership, because we have nobody following us. Whereas if we create visibility around our breakthrough idea, our innovation, and people are interested in it, people are following us while we're leading the conversation around this particular field with our innovation and so on, then I think that this is real leadership. I mean, leaders, you're not a leader without other people, right? If you're just on your own, you're not a leader.
Yeah.
So I think that visibility is certainly super important. But I see people that are visible without innovation, and that can be, has its place as well, but it's much more fun if you're actually able to, create a little spark in the conversation around, that is going on in that field. If you're really able to add something that nobody has seen before in that particular field. So innovation certainly plays a big role too.
So can we say that's like the USP of, if I'm building my USP, can that be something similar to USP, what you just explained?
Yes, I would say so. And I would say, though, that when it comes to USP, you can find different people that have a similar USP, right? And theoretically, when we want to find our breakthrough idea, then theoretically it should be something that an angle. It doesn't have to be something that is completely new, but maybe an angle that other people have never seen before. And the easiest way, I could talk about this for hours, and I have a whole process that I take people through to find their breakthrough idea. But I think that one of the best ways to really find a breakthrough idea is not this. What I'm saying now is totally not exhaustive, but I would say one of the tricks in order to make your breakthrough idea really breakthrough is that you make it personal, because as people like to say, you are unique, right? So if you do something that is really related to your person, right, then probably that product will be unique as well. That breakthrough idea, that nuance, that particular angle that you created will be unique as well. And hence, because it's unique, it will be newsworthy. We're going back to public relations. Like when I work with people on their thought leadership and breakthrough idea, I want them to find something that is truly theirs and is truly new, also because I need it later on in order for them to be newsworthy. So when we go out and we pitch a magazine, a publication, TV, whatever, a podcast with this idea, then we can really say that it's unique and it's really something new. And what usually something that is new is also newsworthy. So that will allow us to actually get this coverage on third-party channels.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you so much for all this. I think I have covered all my questions, but before I leave you, I have this last question on legacy. So how do you want to be remembered as Jessica?
Thank you. Well, because my let's say my highest purpose is actually to help animals stuck and tortured in intensive animal farms, then I would love to be, remembered as somebody who helped move the needle, which whatever, let's say, tool, maybe money because I've made millions and then I donated them, or maybe through my own gifts, because we talked about the importance of lobbying, and lobbying certainly a part of public relations, maybe through that, maybe through, I don't know, campaigns that touch people's hearts and, have them go vegan. I don't know, through different tools. I would really like to be remembered as somebody who was able to save a lot of animal lives.
Yeah, that's very nice, because there's somebody for them. Everybody does it for their own family or for their own, that nearest community. But yeah, people working for those who cannot talk, speak, that really matters. From my end, I have, I've always been like, after Forbes, publishing something with Forbes. So if I have to ask, what are the 5 things I need to do to get an article published in Forbes? So tell me just 5 things that I need to do, that would help me at least in my goals getting closer to, to that article.
Okay, awesome. Okay, let's think a little bit together. So number 1, I would say find your breakthrough idea, right? And find an idea that is really breakthrough and is really related to you. It feels totally aligned with you. It's the expression of you, but at the same time, we need to create something that is really relevant for the field as well, for the industry, for the field as well, because otherwise, if it's only aligned to you, that is great, but then if nobody cares about it, then we will not get covered in Forbes and not even on other third-party channels. So definitely we need that. Number 2, I would say we need to follow Forbes, of course. So not everything, but a lot of things that are published in there. So what are the topics? What are the angles? Who are the people that are working there, right? So what kind of journalists are working there? So another thing that, by the way, I wanted to ask you, so would you like for an article to be written in Forbes about you, or would you like to be a contributing writer? So you write an article for Forbes.
About me.
Different. The article will be written about, okay, so it's more difficult.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. But one of the things that you could do is actually maybe, to get closer to Forbes is actually to become a contributing writer, right? Which is a little bit easier. So you already get a foot into, the world of Forbes, right? Certainly another thing that needs to be done even earlier is actually to network. So it's not just about the research. Okay, what is Forbes writing about? What topics are they covering? From which angle? Who is working for Forbes? But also, okay, let's, once we've discovered who's working for Forbes, then let's start following them. Let's start creating relationships with them. And at the beginning, you have to, even to be seen by these people, you have to add a lot of value to them. So for example, you will share, retweet something that they have tweeted, or there are different ways to do so, but start building a relationship with them. And then, so I think I've covered 4 points, right? So number 1 was find your breakthrough idea. Number 2 was research. Number 3 was network. Number 4 was maybe get a foot in the world of Forbes by being a contributing writer.
Yeah.
And then I would say have, a great pitch. which is not the same thing as the breakthrough idea. The breakthrough idea is actually something that you will use as a foundation for pitches, but it will be your TEDx talk, it will be your keynote at other conferences, it will be your book, it will be what you talk about on your social channels, what you talk about in interviews as well, podcast interviews. Definitely. So breakthrough idea is something more generic, but then if you really want to be covered in a certain article, we have to be able to pitch the breakthrough idea from the right angle. And that is an art in itself as well. So learn how to really pitch well.
Okay. So thank you for everything, Jessica. But before I leave you, I want you to share the latest projects that you're working on and where my audience can find you. Which social media platform can they find you in?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm pretty much omnipresent. So I would say that the best way to find me is to go on my link tree. So you do link tree like the usual, and then you digit JFab, which stands for Jessica Fabrizi, my name and surname, JFab PPR, which stands for personal PR, right? PPR. And then you will be able to see all of my links there. So my Instagram, my Facebook group, my YouTube channel, and you will find TikTok as well. And then certainly also a link to something that is coming up very soon, which is the Embodied Visibility Challenge. It's a challenge that I am holding with nervous system coach Martina. And basically, we are approaching visibility from, let's say, from a holistic perspective. So I will talk about the outer game when it comes to visibility. So all of, the strategies, the techniques, public relations, all of the cognitive and logic stuff and strategic. But at the same time, Martina will talk about the inner game when it comes to visibility. So she will talk about, nervous system work, emotional regulation. She will talk about, embodiment and all of the somatic side of things. And to be honest, even I, a very, let's say, experienced publicist, used to be in a public eye. Even I sometimes have to go back and do my nervous system work with Martina. So yesterday I had a little crisis in which I was like, I don't want to be visible anymore. I don't want to go live anymore in my life. I told her, and she was able, to hold space for me, and in the sense of, this nervous system work. And then after a few moments, I was actually healed and I was able to go back live. So this is something that we're really going to focus on in the challenge. Yeah, I'm going to hold you from the, guide you from the strategic perspective. She's going to be really able to hold you from the nervous system perspective.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to participate in that one.
Yes, I can't wait to have you there.
Yeah. And Jessica, I think I've asked all that I wanted to, but I have your favorite question, which you ask all your guest speakers. Did I miss asking you anything that I should have asked? And if I have missed out, then please share that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for remembering that question. Okay, a question that you haven't asked me yet that you should have asked me. Maybe something about, let me think. Actually, I always ask this question and I don't have an answer for myself. Right?
So we've spoken about networking, we've spoken about community building, we've spoken about mindset, we spoke about all the channels that we should be in. We spoke about your projects.
Yes.
What did we miss?
Yeah, I have something actually. Thank you for summarizing these items. It's really something that helped me now in remembering that we didn't talk about what is newsworthy. Should we talk about?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so how can we make a story newsworthy, right? There are many ways to do that, and I'm going to share maybe 4 criteria that make a story newsworthy. So we've touched on this already a little bit, and we said that something that is new usually is newsworthy, right? So something that has already been just been launched, just been introduced, something that has just been born, usually is newsworthy. So we can consider it as the first criteria. The second criteria is something that is a superlative. So is it the shortest? Is it the longest, the oldest, the youngest, the what else do we have? No, the longest, the shortest, the youngest, the oldest. I don't know. There are different. We take one adjective, and then of course we can find the 2 superlatives on both sides, right? And this is something that is totally newsworthy. For example, when I was at Singapore Airlines, I launched the longest flight in the world. And of course, I did my public relations campaign around it. It was great. And like it was massive also because it involved also flight around the world, like around the world in 3 flights in 3 days. So that was great. But actually, to tell you the truth, Pallavi, this piece of news was actually so newsworthy in itself that even if I hadn't done this public relations campaign around it, it would have still been newsworthy, right? A press release would have been enough in order to create massive publicity around it, because everybody wanted to know what the longest flight was. And they wanted to know how long is it? From where to where is it? It was from Singapore to JFK, New York, right? So it's something that people are really curious about. Also about the shortest flight in the world. Maybe not as much as the longest flight in the world, but certainly, yeah. Another thing that makes something newsworthy is newsjacking. So if we see that you know, in the news, there is something that is already getting traction, we can say, okay, I don't have to reinvent the wheels. I'm just going to take what is already out there and is already getting traction and attention and everything. I'm just going to take the story that I have and maybe, you know, create an angle that is in line with what people are already talking about, right? So, for example, I saw a lot of plastic surgery people that wanted to leverage something that was already going on in the news. So for example, when there was a trial between, like last year, between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right, these people created content and created it, to be honest, even third-party coverage. They got themselves covered on third-party channels because they were talking about the surgery, let's say the plastic surgery history of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right? So they managed to, because everybody was talking about this trial anyway, right? Same thing, exactly, that plastic surgeon did exactly the same thing 2 years ago with the American elections. So what they did is that they just created content and an angle to the 2 wannabe presidents around plastic surgery. So the article was, okay, here are the plastic surgeries that Donald Trump had, and here are the plastic surgeries that Joe Biden had, right? So yeah, so they were actually leveraging something that already existed, because in public relations, we have to be very street smart. We have to be very pragmatic. So we take what there is already, right? So this is called newsjacking. The 4th criterion, which is going to be the last one as well, is basically, let's call it a media calendar. You know, Pallavi, when there are, okay, this is an International Women's Day, or International Mums Day, or International whatever, or even the holidays, like is it Christmas, is it Easter, like is it Diwali, is it Ramadan, I don't know, like different things, recurrencies, things
all over the world.
All over the world. Is it Valentine's Day? It can be local, it can be related to religion, it can be related to something else. I mean, there are so many of the recurrencies. There are even months, not only days, but months. Like, for example, Mental Health Month. I think it's in May, right? So if we create content and create angles and pitches for the media around that, then we have a very likelihood to actually be covered, to be featured, because journalists are preparing for that currency, for that occasion anyway. So if we help them in creating content around that with our pitch, then they will be happy. So for example, you know, but this needs to be, you know, done very much in advance. So when you news tracking, criterion number 3, you have to constantly follow the news, and then you see what is currently getting attention, and then you jump on it, right? So it's very real time. But when it comes to recurrencies, then you have to prepare much in advance. So for example, publicists start pitching for Christmas in May.
Okay, so prepared.
Exactly. So there are different timelines, different techniques, different timelines. But if you know, mix all of them, then certainly you can have high success of publicity.
Jessica, I can't thank you enough personally for this last information, this last bit you provided. Absolutely. It's, at least for me, this is like dope for me for today. I've made notes and I've made all the For the rest also, I've made notes, and it is like learning for me as well through this podcast. So I can't thank you enough for this last 5 minutes, which I totally forgot to ask, and you added on. So yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything that you shared. And you're a very lovely person. I've known you for, I think, more than 6 months now. And yeah, we have developed a good friendship, and I hope we can work together in the future. And I will surely have you once again in my podcast, maybe to discuss additional strategies, or maybe to discuss the version 2 of what we discussed today, at another level, maybe for evolved entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs who are at a different league altogether. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being on my podcast. And yeah, like I said, I look forward to having you here again.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to having you on the Personal PR show as well,
Yeah.
very soon. Yeah, thank you so much for holding this lovely space. And also thank you to your lovely audience for watching us until the end.